What's up, guys? Welcome to the 7th episode of the South Shore Audio Podcast. Brand new edition coming your way. We've got a nice little episode for you in store for today. And we're going to talk about something that I think is really important to hear. I'll tell you, what I'm going to say today is not by any means, well, let's just say I'm not the first person to say it, and I will not be the last either. But I just think that it's an important message that needs to be heard, regardless. I think everyone could use a reminder pretty much when it comes to this. Any of us who are home studio people that are home music producers, basically. I mean, I don't know. I hate to use the word home. We probably work out of our homes, but home has this connotation that somehow it just carries like, oh, amateurish and cheap and low quality. And that's not at all the case. I don't believe that for a second. So welcome in to the podcast. I really appreciate you guys tuning in because there's a lot of different podcasts out there on the interwebs nowadays. And me, myself, man, I love podcasts. So there's so many different ones that I tune into, and you can do the same, but you're spending some time here with me today. So I really appreciate that. I'm really honored to have you for the next 30 or 40 minutes or however long we go. So I wanted to start off by reminding you before we jump into the topic today that I have a free gift for you. If you are just getting started trying to produce music, or even if you're not just getting started, it doesn't matter. I have a free gift that I put together for you, a pack of samples that you can take and drag and drop and put into your DAW, and they are ready to go, and there's no need to mix them or whatever. I mean, you can manipulate them however you want, of course, but the point is they're ready, so you could use them as is, and they come in all these different keys. So I would love to give that to you. All you got to do is to claim it is click on the link that's going to be in the description of the show on iTunes, or wherever your podcasting app is. It'll be in the show notes, the description of this episode. Or if you're watching on YouTube and you're joining me there, it'll be in the underneath the video, in the description of the video. So click on that, just follow that, and get yourself some free samples. My gift to you, no strings attached, 100% free to help you get started. And as a bonus, as an exclusive bonus, might I add, I've included something that's only going to be that's what the word exclusive means. I'm going to add something in there as just a thank you, is like, hey, here's something else I want to give you. And that is a workshop that I've created that essentially just shows you how I use my samples, how I would use my samples, and in fact did use my samples to create a production from scratch, just using them and saying, all right, here's a blank page, what would I do? And it turned out to be a nice little lengthy workshop that I decided to break it up into a 4-part series that you'll have access to, and that is going to be coming very soon. So it might even be ready to go by the time you're seeing this, to be honest. But because I'm trying to get it out the door and ready to go, because I'm excited about it. So, all right. So what are we talking about today? So today I want to talk to you about myths that are out there regarding what it is that you need to get started to get started making music. I think right now, and this is why I'm saying I'm by no means am the first person to say this, and I won't be the last. There are a lot of different myths that exist in today's internet world that if you want to start making your own music, whether you're going to be recording it or you're a producer like myself and you are learning how to be a producer, people think that, oh, you need you can't just start, like you need to get some things. And it's true that you need something. You can't just work with nothing. Okay, so there is a middle point between having absolutely nothing and having all the crazy expensive gear in the world that, till your heart's content, if money's no object, just get whatever you want. There's obviously somewhere in between those two extremes that exists, and people have varying opinions about where that is. I'm going to give you mine today, and you probably already have some idea of where I fall on this, but we're going to get into it anyway. So let's just start. The first myth that I've got that I want to tackle, I can be a myth buster today. Can I be a myth buster? Who do I like more, Adam or Jamie? Let's just say Jamie, because he's got like the handlebar mustache. I don't have a handlebar. I just have I don't even have really a mustache. I just have a beard. But anyway, handlebars are cool if you can pull one off. But I digress. So the first myth is that you need expensive gear in order to achieve good sound. All right, so this might be one of the most obvious, but again, I just want to be here to remind you because this is an important message. I think by now people understand that, hey, I don't need the most expensive outboard gear, or I don't need an SSL or a Neve console to get good recorded sound. I think people understand that now, especially because so many pro producers and pro mixers just use software and tools that are completely in the box, which just means software only, nothing external. And the results are awesome, right? So I think people are well aware of that now. But the main message that I want to share with you about this myth, to tackle it and just tear it down, is sounding good isn't about gear. Gear is a tool. Gear is just a tool. And the tool only matters insofar as the tool, not the tool maker, but the person wielding the tool. The tool guider, let's say, the person who's guiding that tool, that's what's going to determine whether or not that tool is going to be effective to accomplish any given task, right? This is true with any work you can think of. There are always tools, and the tools only matter based on who's using them. So, for example, I am terrible at painting or art. Really, any sort of physical mediums when it comes to art. In high school, I had an art class, and it was at that point where I had to take an elective class of some kind, and art at the time seemed the least painful of the choices, but I knew this is going to be a rough class. And I had a really good art teacher, bless her heart, God bless her heart, man, because she was patient and long-suffering with all her students, me included. And she knew that I was not good at art, at these physical mediums. So we did different things in that class. We did some painting. We did some portraits with these pastels, I think. They look like crayons, but they're just more sophisticated. It's like crayons for adults. And then we did some carving. I remember we took some bars of soap and did some carvings with those. Man, we did some different things. And it's not like I didn't put forth effort. And my teacher worked with me to try to get the most out of me. And I think she did a great job. Bottom line is, I just accept reality here. I'm never going to be a great artist in that sense. I mean, unless I just dedicate my whole life and my whole soul to it, and that's all I do, then maybe I'll stand a chance at being good, but probably still never great. The best possible version of me as an artist, is not that good, okay? And I'm not trying to be hard on myself. That just is what it is. And that's okay. So needless to say, if you put the most expensive, I'm talking high-end, high-quality, painting supplies in my hands and said, now go use these tools to make an awesome painting, right? It would suck. It wouldn't be that great. It'd be like mediocre at best. Now, let's say you take like the cheap stuff, like the cheap crap, cheap tools that you just find at like, so let's say you're going down the clearance aisle at Michael's. And, you know, I don't even know if there is a clearance aisle at Michael's, but let's just say, you know, let's pretend for the sake of argument that there is. And you pick up like just super cheap brushes that are probably going to break after you use them like more than 3 times. And you hand them to Michelangelo, the guy who painted the Sistine Chapel, if you're not aware. Well, let me tell you, you would get a much, much different result than the result you'd get from me with the most expensive, high quality stuff, right? So I think it's not, I'm not like a anti-gear crusader. Like, I love gear. This microphone I'm using, this is the Roswell Pro Audio Mini K47. Not an extremely expensive microphone, but it's not like entry level price either. It's not an $80 microphone. It's like nowadays it's a $350 microphone. So it's like kind of mid-range, I guess, but I think it's great quality for the price point. But, you know, like this microphone is only as good as I am, as the person and the brain and the creativity behind it. The next myth I want to get to, it's not all that dissimilar from the first, but I think it deserves a separate mention. And that's that you need your own professional studio to get high quality results when you're producing music. Okay. All right. So this one's pretty similar to the first, like I said. I love professional studios. They're beautiful, and it's a great experience to be inside one of them. One of my dreams is to one day go hang out at the Mix with the Masters seminar that takes place at a studio in France called Studios La Fabrique. It's like in the south of France, and some of the people I follow online, like Graham Cochran, shout out to you, Graham. I don't know if you'll ever see this, man, but you've been a big help to me with audio and business. But like Graham got to go to the Mix with the Masters event, and I would love to go to that event. That studio is absolutely beautiful. I would love to go to that studio. I don't even care if I'm going to record. Like, I just want to go there to hang out and like just be present and just be in the room while other people are working, just to see how things get done and just to be a fly on the wall. You know what I mean? Like, just soak it in. So it's not as if the like high-end, beautiful, expensive, professional studios, it's not as if those things don't have their place and they don't have value. Of course they do. But we're living in a time where it's not necessary to have that. Like, it's not an excuse that we can ride on and say, oh, well, my budget doesn't allow me to go record at Sunset Sound or RCA Studios in Nashville. Like, therefore, I can't record anything, or I can't produce a song. Like, we use this as like an excuse, as a sort of crutch to say, like, I can't make something because I don't have access to a certain place. With the way that the tools are nowadays, with the stuff that you can do inside of a computer without even having to touch an external environment, there's a lot you can do without even using a microphone. You know what I mean? Like, if your songs have lead vocals in them, you're always going to need a microphone, of course. But I like to compose and arrange and produce a lot of instrumental stuff. And I don't even need to touch a microphone if I don't want to. So I don't need a pro studio. I'm not in a pro studio. This is my home studio. And I've set it up, and all you really need to get going, bottom line, what I consider to be like necessary stuff. You need some room treatment. Get yourself some, there's a lot of times you get like low frequency buildup and resonance in like the corners of a room. I would invest some money in some bass traps. They're not like you don't have to get like super duper expensive ones, but it's going to cost you a little bit of money. I'd say be prepared to spend maybe like between 100 and 150 bucks. Okay. And then that's going to help, tame down some of those low frequency stuff so that when you hear stuff played back, you're not fooled by the rumble in the room. And then I've made these DIY panels where I just took like 2x4s and drilled them together and put towels on the inside and then covered them with fabric, literally. Not expensive. That's something that you can pick up those materials at your local hardware store. You don't have to do what I did exactly. I do recommend the bass traps, but there's other ways to treat a room. I believe there's a company called Auralex, and they make like a starter kit called like the Ruminator, I believe, that might be like $300 or $350 for the whole thing to get you started to treating your room. That, I honestly think you should start with treating your room as like step one. Okay. This is assuming you already have a computer. If you don't have some kind of computer to work on, you need to get a computer, of course. We're teaching you how to produce killer sounds and killer music in a DAW. Okay. So without a computer, there's no DAW. I'm not doing like 8-track recorders and stuff. Nothing against those, but we're producing on computers. So assuming you've got a computer and you've got an interface, and honestly, the Focusrite Scarlett interfaces, I had one for a long time. That is enough. You can get started with those. With some room treatment, a decent pair of speakers would be the next thing to go for after that. I use the KRK Rocket 5s, man. Those are not expensive monitors, but they're great. Lots of people love them. This is all you need to get started, right? And then a good computer. I love Apple computers, but you don't have to. I'm not a snob. If you prefer PC, whatever floats your boat, man. Just make sure you got one that's got some decent RAM to it. I think you need at least 8 minimum, but I like 16 gigs of RAM or more, and a decent processor as well, because you just want to be able to handle big projects so you can not be limited by your computer. You want the limits to be your own creativity and your own imagination, not the tools you're working with artificially putting a ceiling on you. So I've got a friend, his name is Jeremy Sharing, and he produces in a band called The War on Peace, and they're kind of a local band around where I live here in the greater Chicago area. And these guys there's no pro studio. A lot of their songs are sample based and they sound killer. Why? Because Jeremy knows exactly what he's doing. He might be humble and tell you, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing, I just feel it out every time. But the man knows what he's doing. He is a killer producer and mixer, and he is a true testament to the what I believe to be the truth against this myth that you need this awesome killer studio. Like, you can produce killer sounding productions, killer sounding tracks that are professional. And by the way, his band, one of their songs got placed in a Hollywood movie. So I'm not just blowing smoke here. I believe it was called Step Brothers. Like, it had Owen Wilson and it was Owen Wilson and someone else, something to do with their stepfather, something. Their song "You're the Only One" got placed in that film. That was not made in an expensive studio. That was made 100% in the box, I guess, with the exception of the vocals, right? So let that be a testament that it can be done. It can be done. And you too could get your music placed in other people's videos, or maybe even, hey, why put limits on ourselves? Why couldn't we get a song placed in a major motion picture or a TV show? There's no reason why that couldn't be. And you don't need to be in an expensive studio to make it happen. There's another myth out there that this one really kind of bothers me, and we'll call this myth number 3. And that's that there are people who think that you need to be using quote unquote industry standard software like Pro Tools or more expensive third-party plugins. Yeah, I just don't agree at all. I've never used Pro Tools, not once. I've been in rooms where other people were using it. I've seen people use it. I've been a musician where someone was recording me on Pro Tools, but I didn't use it. I've never, as an engineer or as a producer, I've never done anything in Pro Tools, not once. I don't plan on using it, never. I just use Pro Tools as an example because that is one of the ones that a lot of people know, and people think that is one of those pieces of software that you just have to have. It's not true. It's definitely not true. And I think a lot of this is due to the fact that people seem to believe that, and you'll see that there's a consistent theme that's being repeated in all these myths. And I'll give you a hint in a second. People seem to think that, oh, if I just use what other people are using, then I'll get the result that they get. And somehow that logic develops. And that's just not how it works. It really isn't. Now, it's true that you're not going to get the same results that a seasoned pro is going to get. But to think that that's because you don't have the same software that he does, it's just nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. I encourage you to use whatever the heck you want. I don't care what you use, guys. I just decided to pick Ableton like 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was. I don't even remember how long ago. Because I knew someone else who was using it, and they were getting some pretty awesome results with it, and I figured, well, I think Ableton's probably a great program if they can use it and they can get that kind of result. And plus, if I ever have any kinds of questions, well, I got someone to ask, right? So that was my reason. It wasn't anything else besides that. It had nothing to do with, let's just put it this way. I didn't go on Gearsluts and start browsing forums about which DAW is the best DAW. That would have been a waste of time. So my advice to you regarding this myth, pick some software that you think is good and looks good. Or if you're not sure, just pick one. Most DAWs nowadays are awesome. They come with awesome features, awesome plugins. The capabilities are tremendous. You can start on like a limited or more basic or like free version even if you want to. I would suggest that sooner rather than later you get on one of the premium versions of the DAW so that you're not limited by features. And you can really learn to use it to its full potential. So I don't care. Just pick one, commit to it, really learn it, and don't switch. And when it comes to other plugins, like third-party plugins, I'm not against them. I use them and I love them. But I would say start with your stock plugins and learn them. Same principle. Learn them, commit to learning them, get good at them. Learn them, commit to them, get good at using them, and once you really understand how they work and how to like fully manipulate them to get the results that you want, then, maybe you should start considering like a third-party plugin. Or another thing to consider about third-party plugins is as far as like a reason to buy them, it's not because, oh, well, this one sounds way better than this other plugin. Yeah, maybe there's some qualitative difference. Maybe. I'll grant that a stock compressor might sound different than, a compressor that's modeled after an SSL bus compressor made by UAD. They're not going to sound the same, but at the end of the day, a compressor compresses. Okay, so you don't need to start fancy. But sometimes there are certain plugins that do things that other plugins just don't. For example, one of my favorite plugins ever is Valhalla Shimmer. There isn't another plugin that sounds like it to my knowledge. And I bought it because, not because I didn't have other reverbs, I did, but I don't have a reverb that sounds like that. So I bought it and I love it. And I committed to it and I learned to use it in situations where it gets me the result that I want when I'm searching for it. So that's the kind of mentality that I recommend you approach your software selection with. Don't just buy it because it looks expensive, is expensive, or you know that, oh, other pros use it, so I'm sure that means I can buy that and then I'll be good at it. Or I'll get good sounds, good results. You could probably produce a song in freaking Audacity, and if you know what you're doing, and get a good result. I'm not saying you should do that. I hate Audacity. But if you know what you're doing, you know, you can take certain tools and you still can make them sound good because it's you that sounds good, not the tool. And then the last myth that I want to touch on for you guys today, as we get to the tail end of our time together, using samples to write songs is cheating. Ooh, I hate this. I hate this one. But I do have a confession to make. I used to be one of the people who thought this, and I used to say this. And I used to talk to one of my friends who works with and produces samples frequently. Let's just say a lot. And, you know, I would just talk to him and I'd be like, how can you use samples? Like, you're a musician. Like, if you want a guitar sound in your song, then plug in your guitar or mic your amp and freaking record it. Like, are you just lazy? Like, what's the problem? And my friends, I used to have a narrow mindset when it came to sample usage. So, you know, I'd say something like, how can you take a sound that's already recorded by someone else and then call that your own? How can you do that? That's like plagiarizing. Isn't that plagiarism? Like, come on. Can't anyone do that? Well, no. Not anyone can do that. No. Samples, it's just another tool that's at your disposal in today's world, and you can use it to maximize your impact as a musical creator. It's another tool in your tool belt, another weapon in your arsenal. And let me tell you, it's a super powerful weapon. Why do you think I decided to create a sample pack as something that I wanted to give to you? It's because it's something that you can use to start creating music today. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait until you have better gear or more gear to start making your songs. You can take the samples and make them your own. It's all about context when it comes to samples. Samples are a lot like, there's a lot of things in life where they don't necessarily mean all that much when you stand them up on their own. It's all about the context that you place them in order for them to really derive their meaning. So they only mean something relative to something else. You put it on its own, it's not like a sample has a sound on its own, of course, but it's not a song, it's not a hook, it's not a chorus, part of a chorus, it's not an outro until it gets placed into that context by you, the creator, right? So the context that we're creating for these samples is the musical arrangements that we're putting them in. Think about it. When you put it within a particular arrangement, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, chorus, that's just a kind of a cliche or standard arrangement of a song. And you put it within that kind of arrangement into a song that has already like a particular vibe established, at a particular tempo, then, you know, in a particular key too. And sometimes the sample that you're using, you're going to pitch shift it and it's not going to be the same key that it came in. You can do that with my samples. Guess what? I did that in the workshop. So hint, hint, you should definitely check out the workshop, the 4-part workshop. You pitch shift stuff. It doesn't come standard. Sometimes you take what came in a standard key, like, oh, this is how the person who created it made it, but they're handing it to you and now you're changing it. It's taking on a new life. Samples can go through a journey where they take on a brand new life. This is something we talked about in a past episode. I think it was episode 5, in my conversation with Jeremy Sharing. Check out that episode. We talked a lot about samples. It's not a quick, I was going to say it's not a long episode. That's what I meant. It's not a long episode. It was like 20 minutes or so. Quick conversation, and we talked about samples. And I'm here to tell you more about kind of even how I've evolved to using samples all the time. I use samples all the freaking time. It's like my bread and butter now. Sometimes I wonder if I'm still a real musician, to be honest with you. The answer is yes, of course I'm still a real musician, because it's all about the mind. The mind is what's creating the music, and the fingers are just one medium that you can use to execute what is in the mind. The computer can be an instrument that you use to take what's in your mind and create and compose arrangements. And but anyway, I'm not going to get on that soapbox right now, as to what makes you a real musician, quote unquote. But the bottom line is, I think that the use of samples in music creation, it doesn't make you any less of a musician, and to deprive yourself of that opportunity, or to write them off completely and say, I'm not using those because that's cheating. Well, you're depriving yourself of a certain kind of tool because you have a preconceived bias, and you're doing yourself a disservice. Only you are missing out on the benefit from this because of you. I don't know if that made sense. To deprive yourself of a certain tool that could be tremendously helpful just because you buy into this idea that, oh, that's cheating, a real musician wouldn't do that, that's a shortcut, that's cutting corners, like shortcut in a bad way, like I'm cutting corners. It's just, it's a fantasy. So guys, I strongly advocate the use of samples. That's why I created the sample pack to give to you, because I want to put something in your hands that's a powerful tool that can transform how you make music, that can get you started working today. That's just my sample pack, but hey, man, go get samples wherever and whenever you can, and get as many as you can, and build up your arsenal, build up your library. I don't care where you get them from. I'm just telling you, use them. It's not cheating. That's a myth. Okay, guys, so I want to thank you very much for choosing to tune in to the South Shore Audio podcast. This was a great time getting to talk to you about these different musical myths. A lot of these you've probably heard, but I just wanted to touch on them because I think it's super important. Every now and again, you need a reminder about just really what it does take to get started making music, and the things that you can choose to ignore and say, like, hey, those things aren't crucial to get me started on this journey, like, and to get me going and keep me going for a while. Maybe eventually you can upgrade to some more expensive tools because you want to, because you have a deeper understanding of what things do, and now you want something that lends itself to more precise, fine-tuning, surgical ways of doing things. Maybe that's you. Maybe you've got that personality. Or maybe there's tools out there, like I mentioned, Valhalla Shimmer, that does things that other tools don't do. So there's reasons, but guys, the typical DAW nowadays, like if you're on a PC, then this doesn't apply to you, but Logic, it's $200, and it is an amazingly powerful DAW. It's cheaper than Pro Tools, and it's just as powerful. I think they make tons of pro records in Logic now, but that Adele song, The Other Side, or whatever, I'm not an Adele fan, but I just know they made that song in Logic. So obviously the software is good if they can use it and they can get a result, because they're good, right? The producers on that. So you can get DAWs that are not super duper expensive and you can get a microphone that's not that expensive for $100. You can get your room treated and get a decent pair of speakers, and you're on your way for a long time. And I know that's not like okay, so some people say, oh, you can start your home studio for like $300, and you can go for a long time with just that stuff without ever making an upgrade again. Maybe not forever, but for a long time. So anyway, guys, I want to remind you one more time before we get out of here that I've got a free gift for you. I mentioned it a couple of times during this episode. I've created a pack of samples. There's like over 40 of them. That's like 40 free samples, guys. Like, I don't know if you realize, but if you wanted to buy samples, 40 would probably cost you, well, it depends on where you go. So you can't quite put a number on it, but there's a lot of membership sites, and one day we'll talk about them because I'm a big fan of them, like Splice, Sounds.com. I love those places. But you'd probably have to spend like a 1 month's worth of membership to be able to get that many, and I'm just giving you them for free to get you started because I want you to get started making music today. I don't want you to wait. And then you'll also get access to this workshop that I'm working on creating, but I believe I should have, I want to have it out by the time you're seeing this, because I want you guys to be able to look over somebody's shoulder and see how they would take samples to arrange and create something original from scratch, start to finish, just being given insight into the whole process. So guys, if you could do something for me, I'd like to ask a little favor. If you're enjoying the show and you feel like maybe you're getting something out of it, if I helped you, or if just let me, how about this? I just want to know that you're listening and that you're out there and that you're alive and I'm not just talking to the thin air. What you can do is just go ahead and leave me a review on iTunes or whatever podcasting platform you're using. It doesn't matter. Wherever you're listening to podcasts, just go ahead and leave a little review and let me know that you're listening. Let me know that you like the show, and that would be really awesome, and that would super duper make my day. Who talks like that, right? I know, like, who says that? But anyway, but on a serious note, that definitely would make my day. It would do my heart some good. And or if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and click that thumbs up button. I would really super duper appreciate that too. And there we go, saying super duper again. But I would really appreciate you guys clicking the thumbs up. And if you got any questions, you got a comment, concern, you want to share a thought of your own, I'm opening up the floor for you to go ahead and do that. Go ahead and leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening in the audioverse and you're on the podcast, go ahead and send me an email. And the email is southshoreaudio@gmail.com. I'll put the details of all that stuff in the description on YouTube and in the show notes on your podcasting platform. So don't worry about writing it down. It'll be right there. Go ahead and let me know. And why don't you let me know which one of these myths you've bought into the most and you need to start reversing the narrative on. And let me know which one of these you're going to go for. You know, which one of these are you going to attack head on? Or maybe you've got another myth that you've heard, or another myth that maybe you want me to talk about it more. You know, maybe there's something on your mind that you want to hear more about, and I can address it for you. Just let me know. Leave a comment. Send me an email. I'm all ears, guys. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you next time.